So this is my very favorite.
There you go. Okay, welcome to the regular meeting of the Central Texas County District Board of Trustees. This morning, we'll have an invocation by Reverend Towers, the pledge of allegiance to the United States flag by Bill Beebe, and the Texas pledge by Charles Muller.
Please join me in prayer. Father in heaven and earth, gracious Father, thank you for the gifts of grace and mercy and love that you provide for us on a daily basis. Help us during this season, various faiths, express gratitude to you for your interaction with us as human beings. Thank you for this place, for the services provided here for the students, for the faculty, for the staff, for the board. Allow us to have the spirit of gratitude for all that occurs in our lives. Bless us in this meeting that will honor you and honor this institution. I pray in Christ's name. Amen.
Please join me in the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. Pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. First item on our agenda is that we have a quorum present, the meeting is being recorded, and members of the public, they access the meeting on the college website. Second item is the consider approval of the minutes of the regular board meeting, which held on November 17th. A copy of which has been provided for everybody to read ahead. I'll take a motion.
Move that we approve.
Second.
The motion been made and seconded to approve the minutes of the last meeting. Any discussion on that motion? And seeing none, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Motion carries. Next item is the chairman's update. An opportunity for members of the public to suggest additional topics for discussion, address topics of interest, with the presentation within 3 minutes. Is there anyone present who would like to address the board? Seeing none, and that's a chairman's update, I'd like to wish all the staff and faculty and all the members of the board Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. This is the season to be jolly, and we're very, very fortunate to be able to be here today and execute our responsibilities as members of the board. Next item is the chancellor's report.
Thanks, Chairman Booth. First, I'd like to call Ms. Sam Riffin. She has a couple of items she'd like to share with us. I think she'll be very pleased with these.
Good afternoon. Thank you for this opportunity, Chancellor. I wanted to share 2 things. The first thing is November 7th, we received SAC's approval for our massage therapy program. And all of you were a big part of getting that through the process, and my administrators, and so thank you. That occurred in November, and so now we will move forward with that. The other exciting thing that I wanted to share with you was we, cross our fingers, will be number 3. And so this process has been a lot of work, which is why there's only 2 colleges in Texas that decided to pursue this venture. But we are happy to report that the Accreditation Commission for Education and Nursing told us that we demonstrate current compliance with ASIN standards and criteria, and demonstrated the potential to achieve ASIN accreditation based on ASIN standards and criteria in our candidacy presentation that we presented to this commission. And so I share this with you because now they're going to list Central Texas College on the website and their directory that we have achieved candidacy status, and now we will have to have a site visit before November 13th of 2022. And so we look forward to having that sooner than later, but they get to pick that schedule. And so I'm excited to share that they sent us a formal letter. They sent the chancellor a formal letter that we did achieve candidacy status. So we're moving right along. So that was all I needed to announce today, and thank you for the opportunity to share.
I'd like to thank you, Ms. Amarupa, you and your team. Awesome job, and kudos to you. And for the Board of Trustees, this is really important for us, as you know, to keep these programs accredited and approved so we can offer them legally and not get into trouble. And in fact, if we can offer them and be listed. So, again, appreciate all the hard work that you all have done.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Y'all have a nice Christmas.
Dr. Garrett, please. CARES Act Awards update. I think someone had asked one of the board meetings for an update on this, and so that's why
Yes.
Dr. Garrett's going to provide this.
Yes, there's a request from the board to give you all an update on the CARES Act monies. As you may remember, back in March, CTC was awarded a little over $4.5 million, and of that, a little over 2.2 is slated to be given to students to cover expenses directly related to the interruption in our campus operations due to COVID. So there's lots of things that we had to take into account when awarding that money, and based on the number of students that we determined could apply for it, we initially decided to make the award $750. As we made it through the spring and summer semester, we realized that we were going to have a lot of money left over, and we need to give that money to the students. So we upped the award to $1,500, and then we went back, and if a student was enrolled in the fall, automatically awarded them the additional $750. So right now the award is $1,500, but any of the students that had only gotten $750 got the additional $750. So to date, we have awarded 952 students for a total of $1,193,250 to help them defer any kind of expenses that they've had due to COVID and as a student. To break that down a little bit further, in Texas, we've awarded 898 students a total of $1.1 million, a little over $1.1 million. And then for the C&I campus, 54 students received $69,000. So we've been diligently working, and I have to thank Dr. Welsh and her team for ensuring that these students get this money. And then, of course, Dr. Carter's team for actually getting the money to them, but Dr. Welsh's team for awarding it. We still have a ways to go. We still have over $1 million to award. And when we come back in January, we'll have some meetings about how we're going to continue to do that, because it has to all be awarded by April. So we've got to get on the stick. Any questions?
Did you want to introduce?
Well, I was going to introduce that team when we talk about graduation.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, Any questions?
You can understand how important that is that we get that money allocated and broken down and dispersed to those students. Some of our sister colleges and universities have already done all of it. And then they came back and said, wait, maybe we did this wrong.
Yeah.
But it's too late.
Yes.
afternoon. I have a couple of updates regarding the Navy campus and Europe campus. I'll leave them out today in accordance with the agenda. And the first update regarding Navy is actually a TA update or a tuition assistance update. Effective with fiscal year 2022, which begins October 2019, the Department of the Navy announced that it will implement a consistent 18 credit hour tuition assistance program, an increase to 18 credit hours, excuse me. Currently, sailors and Marines are capped at 12 hours of funding. Prior to last fiscal year, they were at 16. So this commitment by the Navy to fund them at 18 credit hours for a 4-year period through fiscal year 2025 is significant. And for our students, what that translates into is an additional, at least additional semester of classes, putting them that much closer to graduation and completing their programs. So that's significant.
You might mention how we're operating the Navy campus. I think they'd be interested in that.
Okay.
Sabrina and so forth, and what you're doing.
Sure. As you know, with the elimination of the NC PACE contract, there was some discussion as to whether or not we would maintain the Navy campus. Obviously, we didn't maintain it as we knew it because that was a major contract. However, we are still providing services online. We're providing distance learning services. We have let me just give you the structure. We have a director of Navy, which is Ms. Sabrina Gerard, and she manages about 15 plus instructors who provide distance learning to our sailors and Marines. And then we have our associate deans of the Navy, which are Mary Stone, who continues to manage a site in San Diego, and Michael Webster, who continues to manage the East Coast. So we call it the virtual Navy campus because back here we don't have office space. They're doing it from their homes for the most part, and some of them have limited office space. So.
And Mr. Beebe, remember those are individual students, so every student is a class, and they're called individual augmentees. And I think we've done a fantastic job with those numbers. I mean, 300 and 400 or something, maybe it's more. I don't know if you and Bob might know that, but it's tremendous. So thank you for that.
Yes. So we're excited about that, as are the service members. Europe. Recently, the Europe campus received an evaluation from the government of the post-secondary education contract, or what we commonly call our VOTEC contract for locations throughout Europe. It's a 10-year contract, so a lot has gone on since 2013, and obviously the most significant being the pandemic. But one of the reasons I wanted to share this item is to publicly congratulate Dean Kindred and his team on something that I haven't seen probably in 10 years or so, and Mr. Beebe can attest to this. They received an exceptional rating in every category of their annual performance evaluation administered by the government. Those specific areas of evaluation include quality, schedule, management, and regulatory compliance. What's important to note here is this exceptional rating exceeds or they outperformed themselves over last year. So during the pandemic, they exceeded the expectations of the federal government and received this exceptional rating. I'd like to read a quote, if you will, from if you don't mind, from the evaluator, and this is actually documented in their performance evaluation. Which, by the way, let me back up. This performance evaluation is maintained in a government database. So anytime we bid on a contract or we are being considered for any type of government activity or award, all those agencies have the opportunity to go into this database and basically look at our report card, look at our transcript, if you will. And so when they do so, they will see that we received exceptional ratings, or 4 stars, whatever you want to call it, across the board for this performance period, and they'll read these comments. Starting in spring of 2020, as services became impacted by COVID-19 closures and restrictions, CTC was very responsive in shifting quickly from face-to-face courses to an online format where possible. Virtual student services were implemented to meet student needs and remain flexible across sites as centers of just mitigation measures. think what we need to take away is that even during the pandemic, we were not relieved of our requirements, contractual requirements, and we, not only did they meet them, they exceeded them. Thank you.
So, thank you. I guess, Ms. Cole, you remember being in Europe as an ESO. Bill, you remember the days we did that? I've been involved with our Europe campus since 1976 when we started it, and in one form or fashion or another, and I've never received those kind of ratings, so it's a testament to the new leadership. Thank you, Dr. Carter. Okay, I've got, do you want to do let's do the video and pictures of the month, so who's first? Dr. Gear?
Graduation. Great. It was amazing. It was our first and hopefully our last virtual graduation we ever have to do. But I thank everybody that was involved. All of you contributed with your videos, and I want to especially thank Barbara and her team and Lee Green-Thaner for the work they did at graduation to implement this, get this up and running. During the graduation, I assume y'all were watching, but at one point we had over 600 people watching it live, which was great. I was watching the numbers go up and down, and I got the biggest thrill out of watching the chat box and seeing what people were saying and congratulating their graduates, and that was so thrilling. And to see all the faculty congratulating their students, I was getting so excited about that. I was texting Dr. A. Dr. Carter during and the chancellor saying, "Look, we're up to 400 people watching, 500 people watching." It was great. It was very exciting. Not as exciting as when we were there, but it was great. Since it aired, we have had over 3,000 views, and that's incredible. So people from all over have been viewing our graduation. We've been getting numerous comments thanking us for doing this. So I have to thank again Barbara and her team, as well as Dr. Welch's team. Will you guys stand up? Debbie Hanson, please stand up. Yeah, Barbara stand up. Barbara stand up. Lee, you're already standing. Bruce Pathfinder, he's not here, but he was involved in it. Ella Baker, wait. She's the coordinator of graduation. Eric Ironhouse, she's the graduation evaluator advisor. Jessica Fry, she's the graduation assistant, and Melissa Henderson, graduation clerk. These people worked tirelessly to get this graduation off the ground, and I can't thank everybody enough. So, good work, ladies. Good work.
Thank you.
Oh, I think we have this is just some screenshots from it, and then we have a little clip. Now I really messed it up. What?
Hang on. Okay. So this is my very favorite. So this is my very favorite part of graduation ceremonies. I love this part. At the count of 3, students, we are going to change our tassel from right to left. We'll move it across, and that will signify this change in status from student to graduate. So wait for me at my sign at the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, move your tassel. Yay! Congratulations. Ladies and gentlemen who are viewing, I'd like to present to you the fall 2020
Goosebumps. It's awesome. So thank you all for participating and helping us make this wonderful. Yes,
I
ma'am.
wanted to make a comment. I don't know who was responding to the critics or the people that might not have said the most positive things, but I was really impressed with how they handled it.
Barbara was the one that was on there
It was
taking care of that.
extremely tactful, very professional. Excuse me, Barbara, I'm talking to you. It was extremely professional, very positive. You didn't allow the people to bring you down. You brought them up in your comments to the negative. So I was really impressed with that.
Thank you. So, any other questions about graduation? But we're going to do it live next.
Yeah, we're hoping to be back with some live or simulants of a live next semester.
No, this one was pretty easy sitting in my chair.
And thank you for the invitation, and Dr. Carter Foundation was wonderful.
Okay, what do we have next? Another picture?
I think, yeah.
Okay, who's up now? Dr. Pete. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you. Great job. They really did a great job. We were sitting at home watching it on the iPad. One of my daughter's friends was graduating, and so we're waiting for her cheering, recording us as we were cheering for the live.
Yeah, the Garrison Commander's wife graduated.
She sure
You
did.
probably heard that.
Nursing program, that's right. All right, the picture that you see here is from the National Cyber League competition that CTC participated in. We had 33 participants from CTC, including early college high school students, and also participants from Texas A&M Central Texas. So this competition stretched over the year, but it was moved virtually. And I'll have to read to you what these students were doing in this national competition. They demonstrated to identify hackers from forensic data, penetrate and audit vulnerable websites, recover from ransomware attacks, and other skills. This was done under Joe Welch's direction. He works for our computer science department. And students were competing for national recognition, but also for local recognition. And they had a female and a male participant, Genesis Seibel and Timothy Coolball, that they recognized. They received $200 from the foundations, the Stefani Foundation and the Patricia Marie Foundation. And also the winners of the highest CTCT score, they received $200 as well. So wonderful how we were able to move this, or how I guess Mr. Welch was able to move this virtually and have students participate. And I think it's going to lead to really great careers for them. Do I need to click? I'm sorry. All right, can you click me? All right, thank you very much. Thought something was missing. This picture here is one of our several police academy graduations we had at the end of this month, and late November and early December. They were all held virtually. The picture here is of the BPOC Delta graduation. You see 11 students graduating. 7 of those were sponsored, so they were sent from other agencies to complete the training with us. And the remaining ones are the ones who then have, are TCOL certified. They complete our academy and then look for jobs. And certainly we'll have no problems finding them. So there was one of multiple graduations that we did here on campus without visitors, just the students and the instructors and guest speakers as well. All right, this fall we had a drama production, and this is part of what students have to do. They're enrolled in fine arts courses. So if you're enrolled in a class that requires this, then you have to put on a play. Now this play was not very much publicized. It was just really here for employees on campus to come and see. But what you see here is a picture of what the Fine Arts Department produced, the New Works Festival that features 4 10-minute plays that were written during the fall 2019 semester by early college high school students that were enrolled in Professor Harrington's class in Drama 1310. And the play that you see there was presented November 13th and 14th. And 4 student designers earned special merit certificates from the Kennedy Center of American College of Art Festival. Ollie Burgos, Carmen Ferrer, and Rochelle Pascua, and Shay Concepcion. So they all did a really great job. As you can see, it looks like fun, and everybody has masks on. That's probably the only way that you know this was done during COVID times. All right, and the last picture that I'm showing is the performance of our jazz ensemble. So students had to perform. They were singing, they were playing instruments, and they had to do it virtually. So it was actually very interesting to see. And here you see several musicians performing, let's see, the Christmas song.
And the foundation or the college development office wanted to ensure that those that they serve regularly and others who may be without during the break had what they needed. And so in this picture, we have a CTC student, as well as you can see many of our staff. You see our campus police there and security officer, as well as the foundation office. And what they do is, as I mentioned in a previous distribution, it's a drive-through. They pack everything up, they prepare the bags, and then people drive through and they distribute them. So we have one more this week scheduled, and we'll make sure we take care of everyone that's in need.
Are we still getting, or do you know, are we still getting food items or?
Yes.
Okay, so
Yes.
that's a continuing deal with him?
It is a continuous deal. As a matter of fact, we continue to receive non-perishable donations as well as personal hygiene and items for babies. We do have a small percentage of our inventory does include that as well. Not only do we receive the physical donations, but we receive monetary donations. People are always wanting to give, not only from within campus, but we have others outside of our college that support.
Do we have a schedule of when these when they'll be released to the public, and how do you get the message out? How does that work?
Well, we advertise it on our website. We use Newslink, but it's also now the distributions, we set those up maybe a month or so in advance. But in the interim, we serve students and staff weekly who need it. So it is a continuous service that we provide. This just happens to be an event, but it is a continuous service, sir.
Well, thank you. And board members, if you know of anybody that can donate or wants to donate, or you want to do that, we're welcome. We welcome that. So thank you.
The foundation board members do, some of us do donate at every meeting, every
Yes.
give her cash.
I was going to say that.
Yeah.
They take up a collection at the end of each
Yeah, that's
meeting.
right. Mobile testing centers, that's in Europe.
Actually, this is in Niger, Africa.
Niger, Africa.
Yes. And so you all may recall that last year in December 2019, the college was involved in a proof of concept remote mobile testing exercise with the military, in which we provided proctored web-based CLEP and DSST exams to military personnel at remote locations throughout the CENTCOM and AFRICOM areas of responsibility. What made this necessary, if you will, the remote testing idea, is the fact that these locations are so remote, and some of them extremely dangerous, that there is no education center. So there is no services provided. There's no testing services available to them. So what the government did in concert with CTC and some others is figured out a way to take the testing to the service members. And I say service members because it's not only Army. In this instance, this is an air base. So what you're looking at is Air Base 201 in Niger, Africa. We did this in December, and it would be November before we were able to do it again, obviously because of COVID, but also there was a terroristic attack on the location that we actually served back in December. So right after our folks got out of there, there was a terrorist attack, and everyone was okay from our team. So what we did was, after reviewing lessons learned and an extreme coordinated effort with the government, the CTC remote testing person went back to Niger on November 2nd and spent 10 days testing and counseling. It was deemed a success. Let me share some numbers with you. A total of 140 exams were administered with an overall pass rate of 50%. That's up from 19% on the first trial, the actual pilot. So that's a result of lessons learned. Service members earned a total of 252 semester hours of credit due to this initiative, with several service members meeting the remaining requirements to complete their degrees. So they deemed it a success. They will continue to tweak it, and the next remote mobile testing exercise is scheduled for the spring.
thank you. Dr. Garrett, I'd like her to mention SAC CLC. We just had a recent visit. If you might just kind of mention that and then get into the rest of it. There you go.
I wasn't planning on mentioning that.
Well, you were instrumental in it.
Well, we did have a SACS virtual visit for our off-site instructional locations the end of last month, and we're anxiously awaiting that report. We came out clean on the majority of the principles. There's one principle that we're going to have a little more work on, which is our program student learning outcomes for program level outcomes. So look forward to that letter and how we need to address that. But it was a successful visit. Now that's just half of it. We did also submit our 5th year interim report, and they said we would get the notification results on that sometime in December. I haven't seen it yet, so I'm anxiously waiting.
When you say a virtual visit, how did that, tell me how that worked?
Oh, that was very interesting. There was a committee of my peers, people across the Southern Association region from other institutions that for about, about 4 days, logged in, and we hooked them up through WebEx to the sites that they wanted to see. They chose several sites and all over the world, and these were newer sites that had been submitted or was a correction submitted since our reaffirmation in 2015. And we gave them visual tours, virtual tours of the site. They spoke with the site directors, they spoke with the faculty, they spoke with students. They wanted to make sure that we are equipped to deliver instruction effectively at each of those locations. And they were very impressed with our locations. They were very impressed with the personnel, the faculty. They felt that what we do at each of these sites was impressive. They were very pleased to see the extent of the services to the students. They looked at not only the instruction side, but they looked at what services we provide both virtually and at the locations. So that was very impressive.
I want to thank all 3 deputies. The sites they visited weren't sites that you would normally think that they would want to visit. One was in Sinai.
Yep, Egypt.
So Egypt, and they visited Fort Rucker. They visited Fort Gatesville.
Bethesda.
They visited the headquarters in Europe. So there were lots of coordination that had to go on, and thank the 3 deputies for making all that happen. And to gather those people and to get them there and to get them on a timeline and to get students there. Because some places we weren't teaching classes right now, so they had to reach out to previous past students to get them to come in. So thank you.
And then during those sessions, I would get questions, feedback, and then we'd scramble and get them answered and forward back to them. So it was different than an actual on-site visit where they come and you get to woo them and give them little toys and food and feed them and wine and dine them and stuff, where you impress them that way. But we were able to impress them without that. So I think that's impressive.
Yeah, and she mentioned that in our letter, we'll probably have some work to do with student outcomes. And it wasn't that we don't have student outcomes. We hadn't documented them, And as I told that team, I said, we as educators tend to not want to admit to our failures and our shortcomings, so we don't report those. But they want those reported so that they're not made again, those kinds of mistakes. And they want to know what we tried, how we tried it, what the metrics were, what the outcomes were, and so forth, and then what did we do to move forward from that. So it's just a matter of going back and capturing that and giving it to them. So we have until, I think, April to answer that.
Yes. And they said that before that, our vice president, Dr. Shirley, said if it's really something bad, they'll give you a year. If it's not, you have to do it in April. So I'm taking that as if it really wasn't
For April.
we got April. The other thing, as a SACS liaison, I get to do some honors here. And as you know, our chancellor
More work.
For all of you.
That's right.
Yeah, that's right.
You caught that immediately.
I'm used to it.
Sir, that completes my report.
Thank you very much, Chancellor. Our next item on the agenda is discuss and consider approval of the October 2020 financial statement and investment report. Mr. Stewart?
You should have a copy of the financial statements for October in front of you. And I wanted to point out several things that have gone into play to put these numbers as good as they are through October. First, I want to remind everybody, we're talking October, 2 months, so caution still prevails, because it's hard to determine where you really are going after only 2 months of the fiscal year. But it is definitely better to be on a positive note than a negative note, and that's where we currently are. If y'all will remember, it wasn't that long ago we were preparing the budget, and there were things that we were considering and we implemented as part of the budget due to the pandemic that concerned us. We built into the budget as if we were going to get a cut in state appropriations. We built into the budget that we may not collect taxes at the same rate we had historically collected taxes. And we built into the budget a decrease in the fall semester that we were right on line with, but then we also built into the budget a 10% decrease in enrollments for the spring semester. Well, some of the things that have changed so far in those regards that have helped turn things around were, first of all, it appears that we've gotten the bullet from the state, and the state is no longer talking about taking any funds back from the community colleges. So when we built the budget, we built it with the assumption that we would be short $1.6 million in state funding. So we don't have to absorb that shortfall any longer. We also thought, the way things are going, what's happening with local people in the community, let's make an assumption that we're going to collect taxes potentially at a 5% lower rate than we've collected them before, just to be safe. So far, we're collecting taxes at the same exact level that we've collected them previously. And as most of you know, the biggest payments for taxes come in October and January, which is when you start, October is when you start getting your, the biggest deduction that you can get for early payment. And January is the final due date. So after January, if the numbers still consider to look like they do, we'll have also dodged that bullet that we thought was going to potentially affect us with lower revenue. Then, of course, the biggest thing that affected most of the people at this institution was the fiscal conservacy that the constraints might even be a better word, that we put out for everyone to really clamp down on spending. We have been frugal and tight, I guess, are the good words to use at this college for as long as I've been here. But this year, we really have been clamping down. The lady in my office who approves 90% of the requisitions has probably sent more emails and made more phone calls this year in just since September to folks saying, I'm not convinced you really need this. You better sell it to me. Tell me why you really got to make this happen. She's probably made more of those since September than she has in the last 25 years she's worked at the college. And the nice part about it is when those phone calls go out, when those emails go out, it's very rare that we have anybody buck us with the response that tells us, and normally when they do, it's for reasons that we said we would approve those expenditures for, which were critical items to continue with the mission of the college. So you put that in play, as well as the item that I talk about every month when I stand up here, and that's GASB 68, GASB 75. And flip a coin, there's no telling what the number's gonna be. For the past several years, what I have budgeted and put in the financial statements every month as a net expenditure to the college
has been a greater number than what has actually happened. So after the audit was done this year, and that same thing happened this year, I decided I would lower what I considered to be the expense to the institution this year, so I made an adjustment for that as well. And when you put all those things together, and you look at your October financial statements, through 2 months, we have a positive bottom line of about $585,000, which is not as strong as it has in the previous year. At the same point last year, it was $2.2 million. However, when you consider that last year's budget, when we put together the budget for this year, we assumed the entire budget, we'd have a loss of $500,000. So for us to be at a positive level after 2 months through the fiscal year, and all of those things that I've talked about that doesn't look like are going to come into play on the lost revenue side, there's a good possibility that we actually will turn this year around and end up being in the black and not have a negative position, which is what we approved in our budget. So all that's great news, especially right before the holidays. So that's my Christmas present, to be able to announce that. I had nothing to do to make it happen, but I can announce that it happened. So I want to make sure everybody's aware that we're off to a good start for the fiscal year.
Thank you, Mr. Liberty. Any questions of Mr. Liberty? I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
The motion made and seconded to approve the financial statement report for October 2020. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next item is discuss and approve of November 2020 interim financial statement and investment report. I understand you want to table that?
Yes, sir. We'd like to table that. As a general rule, we don't present the November report because of the holiday time and all the work that my staff does to get the end of the year audit done on time. So we'll present November and December at the January meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Liberty.
Yes, sir.
Next item on the agenda is discuss and consider approval of the annual financial report and report to the Board of Trustees as prepared by the independent audit firm of Lockburn and Company, P.C. for the fiscal year ending August 31st, 2020. Mr. Wagner?
Good afternoon, members of the board. You should have a copy in front of you of the fiscal year 2020 annual financial report. Our independent financial statement opinion attached to this is an unmodified opinion, a plain opinion, meaning when you look at this financial, it's a conformity to generally accepted accounting principles, and also has all the required disclosures required by the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board. Real quickly, looking at the financials, we discussed the variation from the previous year. If you have any questions, please get my attention, I'll answer them. You're going to hear me say COVID a lot. I'm sorry. I say it at every meeting. I wish I didn't have to. With most of the variations are related to that. Starting on page 13, your statement of net position. Total assets for the district. About a third of the way down the page. Sorry, I didn't get my readers out. These numbers are getting small. Total assets for the district, $267.7 million for this fiscal year, down 4.7 or 1.7% from the previous year. Cash and investments stayed pretty standard to last year. Your biggest decreases were the third item in that current asset listing, accounts receivable 11.1 is down 3.1 million from last year. And again, that's due to a peak into your fall 2020 semester with enrollments being down compared to last year. That number is down. And then the last item under non-current assets are capital assets of 140 million. It's down 1.7 million over last year. You did add 1.9 million of capital assets this year, but net of your depreciation expense of 3.6 is actually a decrease in capital assets. Looking at total liabilities, 2/3 of the way down the page, your next total underlying subtotal, 112 million for this fiscal year, which is pretty comparable to last year. So debt is Real quick variation analysis there. Your first item under current liability is accounts payable at 1.6 million, is down 2.9 million over last year. That's primarily due to what Bob mentioned, tighter controls on your spending. That came into play right at fiscal year end also. Then the fifth item in that subset, your unearned revenues of 8.9 million is down by 2.1 million from last year, and that is another one of those numbers that's peeking into your 2021 fiscal year. Looking at your fall 2020 enrollments, anytime the receivable for that is down, the unearned revenue for that is going to also be down. Then under non-current liabilities, the only increase we really have is the last item in that subset, and that is your OPEB liability, otherwise known as GASB 75. At 59 million, it is up 5.8 million over last year. Looking at the two biggest variations for that liability, one is the health cost trend rate. That did not change from last year, so that did not affect the liability as it relates to the actuary. But the discount rate did change, so they did have a discount rate attached to that liability, and it went from 3.9 down to 2.9. Anytime that number goes down, your liability goes up. And again, that did affect some of Bob's last minute adjusted journal entries, but it wasn't as much as had been advertised. Giving you a total net position, bottom of the page, 131.2 million for this fiscal year, up 3.3 million or 2.6 over last year. If you look at the number right above it, we always spend a little time with an unrestricted net position. You see that number is negative. The reason that number is negative is GASB 68 and 75. Having to do those year-end journal entries always affects that number. So looking at that more of like a fund balance approach, a reserve, if you will, I took the effects of GASB 68 and 75 out of it, so that negative 10 million goes up to a positive 97 million. So that's more of a cash basis, modified cash basis fund balance approach to your reserve. Any questions on the statement of net position? Okay, looking at that 2.6% increase in net position, if you flip to page 15, you have your statement of revenues and expenses. First subtotal is your operating revenues, 46.8 million, down 9.3 million or 16.6%. Biggest decreases were the first item in that subset, tuition and fees at 34.7 is down 4.6 million with your decline in enrollment. The number right below that, federal grants and contracts, at 6 million is down 2.7 million, primarily due to the decrease in ordering on the military side. And then the fifth item in that subset, your auxiliary enterprises, that revenue is right at 3 million, and that is down 1.6 million due to the COVID-19 effect on your spring semester, especially as it relates to cafeteria and dorm. Operating expenses for this fiscal year, middle of the page, 99.5 million, down 3.8 million or 3.7% from last year. The two biggest increases or decreases are the seventh item in that subset, your scholarships and fellowships at 21 million is down 2.3 million. Anytime your enrollment goes down, this number goes down in conjunction with it. And then the number right below that, your auxiliary enterprises, those expenses were down almost $1 million, again due to the COVID-19 effect on the spring semester. Your next subtotal is your net non-operating. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
On the one, state grants and contracts, you said it was down 3, I'm assuming you just misspoke when you said 3 mil, it was down 3 million, but it's really 200 and some thousand, correct?
He was talking about the federal grants and contracts, the line right above that. The 6 million compared to the 8.7.
But he still said 3. That's the one you're referring to?
2.7 million, which as an accountant, you rounded up to 3.
Okay.
Again, our auxiliary enterprises, or your net operating revenues is the third subtotal down, right at 56 million for this fiscal year, which is down 1.6 million, or 2.8% over the last year. The majority of that, in fact, pretty much all of that decrease is the third item in that subset, and that would be your federal revenue non-operating at 18.7 million. It's down right at 1.6 million for this fiscal year. 3.3 million of that decline, or what happened with the tuition side, is the Pell Grant is down 3.3 million due to the decrease in enrollment. But then when the CARES Act money comes in at 1.6 million, it decreases the effect of that fluctuation, giving us a 2.6% increase in net position. That's that third item from the bottom at 3.3 million this fiscal year. Any questions on the statement of revenues and expenses? So overall, COVID-19 had a drastic effect, if you will, on the financial side. Still in the black, as Bob mentioned. On the compliance side, you came out really well. So if you flip to page 69, we have a nice summary of the whole compliance side as it relates to the federal and state single audit. The first two sections there, item number 1, deal with the financial statement and major program internal controls related to the single audit. Both opinions are unmodified or clean with no material weaknesses. Item number 7 under that identifies those major programs. We're accustomed to seeing the student financial aid cluster. That's always picked as a major program, but you notice right below that we did have to test the CARES Act money because it is a new program. And since it's new, it comes in with an automatic high risk indicator. And if you flip the page, item number 10 and 11, as it relates to both of these audits, you do qualify as a low risk auditee for both federal and state single audit. And all of this information will go into the data collection, or the data, what's it called, Bob? The data.
Federal Clearing Warehouse.
Yeah, Federal Clearing Warehouse. So when you go out for future grants, I know that y'all talked about that, probably with the CARES Act and everything else, that's the first place they're gonna look to see if you're a low risk auditee. And if you are, you will be frontline for new grants. Any questions on the compliance side? The other side of the compliance is the letter to the board. As the auditor, I'm required to give the board this letter. The required communications on the front end of this letter are required. Most of them deal with, do we have problems with the audit? Do we have to have consultations, things of that nature? All of these things, all the answers to these questions are of a positive nature. I didn't put anything in there for COVID-19. We did not have any issues with your staff. Everybody made changes when they could. Bob and I finished his financial last Friday after he got off COVID protocol, so I didn't put anything in there related to COVID-19 because y'all did everything y'all could possibly do to help us get this audit done. So all of these answers are of a positive nature. On the last page of that document, we have our current comments and suggestions for this fiscal year. Before I dive into that one comment, remember last year we had several comments dealing with Title IV. I had work study comments, I had a Pell Grant comment, and I had a satisfactory academic progress comment last year. All of those are part of your financial aid cluster. We did do that testing again this year. All those comments were corrected for this fiscal year. The only comment we had to add adult education to the single audit this year. And to summarize, basically you have a cost allocation plan for your adult education, whereas it calls for more of a direct allocation to the actual expenses that you're expending, both for federal, state, and other. And the plan doesn't match how you're actually spending funds as it relates to the split out between federal, state, and so forth. It's not direct, it's basically based upon TWC's advertised percentages. So at the end of the year, you take TWC's percentages as they want you to split it out between federal, state, and other, and that's how it's recorded on the books, which is fine. Our suggestion here is just to change your actual plan to state that you're not doing a direct based on the plan. You're doing the federal, state, and other split out based upon what TWC is advertising for you to do. Usually it's just a year in entry. So it should be a very easy fix. Any questions on that? That concludes my report.
Thank you, Blake. Appreciate that very much. Anybody have any comments?
I'd just like to thank Dane, Blake, and Blunt and Vernon for all your hard work over these years. Dane knows this pretty well. I can't tell you how many years you've been with us, but it's been a lot, and I appreciate the work you do and working with Bob and the staff, so thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Can I add something, please?
Sure.
You know, you're fortunate every month to see my face up here, and you see Doug's in the audience. But, you know, Doug reminded me with an email yesterday. He sent me an email. I'll get choked up here if I'm not here. But, Doug shared how hard my staff works to make this happen. And the fact that when something's needed, and it doesn't matter right now that we're mostly working from home because of the COVID issue, when something's needed, my folks stop what they're doing, they come to work, they get it taken care of so the auditors can have what they need. And, you guys know me, this is not my fault. But, I could not do the job that I did without those folks. And I just want to make sure everybody's aware of that. And the other person that needs to be mentioned is Doug.
Yes, I was gonna do that.
Because there are plenty of things in here that are, Doug and I by ourselves don't understand it, but when we get together, we can figure it out. And, that doesn't always happen between the chief financial officer and an internal auditor in a lot of places, and here it does. And, I got a lot of gray hair, but I won't think I'd have any hair if it wasn't for the fact of the staff and Doug Barton working out here. I sure that.
Thank you, Bob.
At this point, we can entertain a motion. Motion been made and seconded to approve the, financial statement and report for the Board of Trustees. Any questions on that motion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
The motion carries. The next item on our agenda is to discuss and consider approval of the board document number 337, revision number 22, policy statement and position paper, investment policy. Mr. Rivers.
Yes, sir. This one is actually pretty easy. We're required to present to you, and you're required to approve every year a new investment policy. This one, the only changes in it are the dates on the policy to now be dated 2020 as opposed to 2019. This is the second year of the biennium, so there are really no changes to be made. Even though we knew there would be no changes, this was sent to our investment advisory folks, who also for years have helped the state clean up that Public Funds Investment Act as much as possible, and they reviewed it and said the same thing. Bob seconded your biennium, nothing's changed. So there's no changes at all to this document other than the date. But as far as a requirement, we're required to have it adjusted every year. So the administration is coming asking for you to approve the current document.
Any questions, Mr. Delivery? Motion been made, do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded, any discussion on the motion? All
I
in
have
favor
the
of the
same
motion, say
problem
aye.
with it that I had last year, but it's not because of our local staff who are doing a wonderful professional job of trying to comply with a badly flawed investment policy that is forced on us. If you look at page 2 of it, this is probably the most risk adverse policy that I have ever seen. This would fit beautifully with the parable of the talents for the poor guy who got one talent and went out and buried it. And when the master came back, he threw him out and stripped him of all of his worldly goods. That would comply with this policy beautifully. If you go further, on page 3, prudence, it talks about a prudent person. That is probably, this is the worst application of that theory that I have ever seen. The only thing prudent about this investment advice is that we have produced a beautiful document to make sure that none of us are not in compliance with the law. Because when you go back and take a look at the first item I mentioned, if you sit back and take a look at it, if we were able to make the same amount, if these folks were turned loose to do what they need to do as finance professionals, we could lose 75% of our money and take the same amount that we're making in the foundation and have the same income. You get down to the prudent man portion, and fortunately nobody has ever come to me with these kinds of ideas as though that is anywhere close to prudent. And thirdly, on page 4, my question is, this has to do with the annual notification on April the 15th of any conflict of interest. Have we ever gotten a conflict of interest from any of our vendors?
No, sir.
No.
Okay. So my unhappiness is not with staff who has done a beautiful, magnificent job trying to comply with something that is badly flawed.
Any other comments? Motion been made and seconded, all those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Abstain.
Motion carries. The next item on the agenda is discuss and consider approval to purchase the fan nook and roller aerobics in lab equipment used with Perkins Fund in the amount of $66,445. Mr. Prescott.
We're going to table this item, sir, until January, and we'll present it at the workshop and at the board meeting.
Okay. Item number 9 then is tabled. Next item is meeting with the Rosary monthly update, Mr. Holliday.
You want me up there if I speak from here?
You can speak from there because you got a mic.
Get the mic close so it can get recorded. Thank you.
I have been pursuing Brad since I was elected over the goofiness of the law that has to do with our investments. And he finally called and asked if we could sit down and have a meeting. Mr. Yiannopoulos and I discussed it, and he invited 2 more board members to go with me. And he was being surgically manipulated at that point, so was not able to make it. We sat down with Brad, and fortunately Mr. Liberty was there to bail me out every time I got into trouble. The first item we started talking about, which has been on everybody's plate, is unfunded exactly what was happening, by showing him our financials so he could follow it clearly, so it was not obscure. We ended that conversation, correct me when I'm wrong, Bob, which happens often, is that we will use Mr. Yiannopoulos' contacts through the state, contact the other institutions that we figure are being impacted on this like we are, which is primarily San Antonio and this area. He introduced the bill last session when they tried to give some relief to a poorly funded idea. They left out community colleges when they were taking care of everybody else. Because I can remember when I was treasurer of the Chamber of Commerce, then when I was a member of the Economic Development Commission, we had problems with the same Investment Act, but I did not read it at that point. So that's, I believe, Bob, where we left that for, didn't it?
Yes.
It was a good discussion.
Yes, sir.
And it's not completely up to him, so we're trying to get a consortium together to see if we can bring enough power so community colleges can get added to that, relief bill. And then we went on.
Sir, he supports it. He supports us doing it. He just shared with us that we need to make sure we have others that are with us, because that's the only way he's going to get anybody else to buy off with him in the legislature. Sorry, sir.
And then we went on to talk about, I had pointed out to him fairly pointedly that virtually none of our local institutions would bother to buy our CDs. And so that's where the rest of the conversation got started over the act. And so we're pursuing a similar kind of deal to see if we can get enough people at the state level to give us some relief on some of their interesting ideas.
Yes, and he has the ear of a gentleman who is a very big player in the Public Funds Investment Act, that, and I cannot remember the gentleman's name, Rudy May, but he said he would speak to him directly to see which direction or how we could go about potentially getting the state to unleash the chains just a little bit better on us.
So basically, those were the two, other than some deer hunting and COVID issues and so forth that we all talked about. It was really not about CTC. With Mr. Liberty's help, we were showing him how that affects every school district, every city, and so forth and so on these issues. And why we would like to see some relief, not only for Central Texas College, but for the whole group across the state. Any questions?
I need to make one correction to Mr. Hollinger's opening remarks. It wasn't board members that we brought, it was staff.
Yep.
Yeah.
Good report. Thank you for that report, sir. Appreciate it.
Let me add, I have been in contact with some of the other colleges. Although they find it interesting, I'm not getting any traction. And so I'll continue to pursue that. I thought that El Paso Community College would have as big a stake in this issue as we do. As it turns out, they don't, and they don't rely on Fort Bliss to be a big part of what they do. All of their activity is with about 30 school districts, and so anyway, not getting much traction at all. But I'm going to continue to pursue that. But the biggest problem is not having to.
You don't have any money to invest like we have been very prudent to do.
Right.
Then it's no big issue, because what the rate is really doesn't make any difference. The most recent rates we've been given, our students are able to go out to a credit union and probably get 12 times the amount we can get, because students don't have to present something that would cause them to hit the regulatory wall that we're talking about. Because when you sit down and That's sobering, folks.
Well, we've got the justice section coming up in January, and, CCAT over the years, we've taken this issue forward and talked to people. And it's very difficult, like Chancellor said, to get other community colleges interested, because like Alamo, San Antonio, they don't feel the impact. We feel the impact here because we don't have any heavy industry. Our biggest industry is Fort Hood.
And that tax base,
And our
you know,
tax base is
our tax base is heavily impacted where theirs isn't. And so
Their tax loss is probably greater than what we receive in total taxes in a year, but it's such a small percentage to their overall number that they're not concerned with it.
exactly.
In our case, the number that I presented to Representative Buckley was a loss of $2.4 million out of a $13 million base. That's a big, how much more could we do with $2.4 million of this government?
That's very significant. You gotta realize that if you look at the college district tax base where they are located, we've got part of Coyle County and part of Bell County, and that's it.
Well, there are three legislators that I target with helping us in this area. One, of course, is Dr. Buckley, and if he would just include us, if there's a bill that he's going to author, to include us in that offering along with the cities and the counties. I think when they went forward with this last one, they thought they had Copper's Cove locked up with them, and I think Copper's Cove dropped off at the last minute and said, wait a minute, we want to support what's going on in Harker Heights, we want to support ourselves, so it kind of fell apart. But Representative Shine included community colleges in the bill. And he did that because of Temple College. Well, that's okay, we ride the coattails of that if that were to pass. And the other one, of course, is our legislator to the north, and as soon as, I guess, she's gonna get sworn in anytime soon, I don't know what the dates are, I'm not that political, but, we will be meeting with her to, and Rudy has been reaching out to them, so that, we can talk to her about the same issue. So if you had three legislators going in on this bill, that might be the beginning, that might be a start, and they could pick up some other traction.
Because for those of you who haven't noticed, the most recent bids we're getting on our CDs is less than 1/4%, and that's on $1 million CDs, folks. Of course, the feds have also said they're gonna keep interest rates at 0 or near 0 through 22 or 23,
Late 22, early 23.
Okay, moving right along. The next item on our agenda is to discuss the foundation bylaws. This information item only. We've talked about this, told you the foundation was working on a change to the bylaws and indicated some of the changes they were looking at. Since then, I've been informed that the executive committee, after we had a meeting they invited me to, has decided to withdraw their recommendation for changes. So as it stands right now, the foundation bylaws will remain as they are. Moving on to the next item. Appointment of board member of the CTC Foundation Board. Holly has decided that she would like to step down from the board effective the 1st of January. And our requirement is to provide 2 members from the trustees to the foundation board. And at this point, I'd like to volunteer to step forward and take that position.
We need action on that.
Say again?
We need action on that.
We need action on it. We need to come forward with a person who would take that responsibility. Here's what you have to do. You have to go out and get or give $1,000 annually to the foundation, and you have to attend about 3 or 4 board meetings a year, and of course show up for the different functions, which normally we do anyway. fashion show and those kind of things. I hope that this year we can continue to do those things. The Christmas tree thing has already passed us, obviously, but, hopefully we can do the, fashion show this year and the golf tournament. And participation in that is what we've asked you to do in the past, like buy tables for your friends and relatives and neighbors.
Well, you're seeking a motion to
I'm
appoint.
seeking a candidate,
I thought you already volunteered.
a volunteer. I'm on it already.
Oh, okay.
We have to have two. We need one more. So, you're interested in all
No,
this?
I was just interested in electing you, that's right.
Y'all did that several years ago. Thank you very much. Mr. Hollinger, would you be willing to do this?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Then, you are hereby appointed, sir. All right, next item is an update on the non-financial challenges of COVID-19. Dr. Carter.
And while Dr. Carter's moving toward the podium, this was an item that was asked for a couple of board meetings ago, and Dr. Carter has been doing a fantastic job keeping up with these numbers and keeping us safe. And so I'm really thrilled that she's going to be able to present this to us.
It's called teamwork,
That's right.
cooperation, collaboration, all those kinds of things. As the chancellor said, this was a request of Mrs. Coley, and so before I get into that, I would like to provide you with an update on our COVID response plan, our return to campus plan. We are concluding phase 4, which began August 24th, and we will be moving into phase 5 effective January 4th when we return. Not much change there at this point. All areas are open in some form or fashion, be it virtually or face-to-face, with the exception, and I think you'll understand, our residence hall. After much deliberation each semester, Dr. Garrett talking with her staff and then bringing forth a recommendation to the executive group, just too risky, obviously too risky. We have a vaccine now, but it may be some time before we can implement that in terms of a requirement to live in the dorm. So we've had some, with each area, we've had target dates for opening and the types of services that we would provide. So as I said a minute ago, all areas are open in some manner. However, the residence hall will remain closed until further notice. That's correct. So regarding the non-financial challenges, as we thought about it, we came up with 2 because practically everything is tied to finances, hence the $4+ million CARES Act award for student aid and institutional support. And what continued to rise to the top is the mental health and well-being of students, faculty, and staff, and the response anytime there is an exposure or positive test in a particular area. And so I'll begin with I'll talk about the mental health issues first. As you can only imagine, this is a very anxious time for people. People are depressed, and so we have an awesome department led by Dr. Mahone Lewis with 2 licensed counselors in the Student and Employee Assistance Program. And what we did with some of those CARES Act dollars was we purchased a HIPAA compliant software that allows them to serve students, faculty, and staff virtually. So when they are unable, obviously they've not been able to see students simply because of the proximity in which they counsel, they've been able to serve them from their computers using equipment that the college provides, and they have not missed a beat. The highest number of clients served in 1 week was about 27, if I recall. And that's a pretty high number for 2 individuals because not only do they counsel, but they have to document what they're doing. So hats off to those 2 young ladies, and we certainly appreciate what they do. The other item is just simply responding when there is a notification that there has been an exposure or positive test, someone that's been exposed or tested positive for COVID in a particular area. And it's not just the space is closed, but the facilities folks have to wait before they can go in, clean, disinfect before the space is usable. But then there is also the instructional side when it's in a classroom. Dr. Ady's staff, they have to quickly move everything online because you can't just put classes on hold. You're in the middle of a semester and things must continue. So it's a concerted effort, and that's what I meant. It's cooperation and collaboration. But then there's another piece to that, and it's the managing self-reports. And one of the things that we require is if you've been exposed or you test positive, student or staff, you must complete the self-reporting form, our online form. And then depending on whether or not you're a student or an employee, it will go either to HR or Student Success Office. And from there, they begin the somewhat what you call adjudication of those self-reports. Obviously, you can only imagine there are more self-reports due to exposure than there are positive tests. And they must review each and every one of those reports. And they work with each individual, and Dean Starkey and Ms. Jordan, they have excellent staff who review each of those reports and then has to communicate with each individual on what's going on with them, when they can return, what type of documentation is required. And it's very labor intensive. It is very labor intensive. And we have been fortunate enough to shift some things around where we have not had to add a person. And under normal circumstances, we might have tried to add another person to manage this, but the CTC employees have truly stepped up. We've got folks doing things that are not in their job description in order to get these things done. So I would say those are the two non-financial related items.
Thank you. That, when I asked the question previously, I know that you would make sure, Jim, that we had the money to take care of the issues on campus. But I also know that mental health, and that was one of the ones I was thinking of, would affect both the staff and the students. So that was my priority, to find out if we have all the things, but you can't fix the mind. You have to give them and support them where they are. So thank you. I know it took a little while for us to get this information because you were away and then you weren't exactly sure about what I was asking for. But the mental health was my goal, to find out what are we doing to take care of the students and staff.
If I can add, Mrs. Gold, the staff in the Student and Employee Assistance Program are so committed that they recognize that this is a different time that we're in. And so they are making themselves available to their clients during the 2-week Christmas and New Year's break. So while they have provided their clients with coping mechanisms and strategies, when they do get anxious or feel depressed, they are also making themselves available, if any of them need them during that time. So they will not be without support.
And being able to do it virtually, I'm really, really impressed with that. I'm grateful that we have staff that's dedicated. At some point, I know you told us that they exist. I've known that since I came, practically since I came on the board. But someday, can you just invite them here?
Yes.
I would like to meet the 3 people that spend their time taking care of our staff in that manner.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Absolutely.
Great.
If I can add just a couple of items for your information, and just brag on our staff. Since June, the middle of June to date, we have had 29 cases. Just 29 cases. And that's significant. That's a major accomplishment. And so I wanted to share that with you. I don't know if it's going to happen this week. I get a report every week, so. But, and then also our COVID-19 liaison, Mr. Dave Hickman, will be attending an online meeting with Bell County on January 5th regarding the rollout of the vaccine in our community. So we're on top of it, and we're all working together.
and
Yes.
make sure they understand that.
It's worldwide.
Thank
There are
you.
operations
Thank
all over
you.
the world in the United States, and 29 cases, that's pretty incredible.
The one last comment, the young man, that I don't think he's in the room, that, performs the job as the, what's the word?
The liaison.
Yeah, what was his name?
Dave,
He was the individual that we met recently, correct?
yes.
Anyway, someone in the community was in a meeting with him, and they were very complimentary of his knowledge. And I was really curious about how we got it.
Thank you, Dr. Burton. You know, we continue to practice and preach and practice, the three W's I call them. You know, wash your hands, wear your mask, and, watch your distance. So we'll continue to do that. And I sent out a message, I don't know, Barbara, if you were able to get it out today or tomorrow, whenever it's gonna go out to the faculty, staff, and students, just basically that, and that, we'll see them back here in January.
So does that mean the students will be able to come back to school, class, face to face in January?
There are some classes that are already and have been meeting face-to-face, and they're trying to roll more of those back in. Our schedule is set right now, to continue with virtual learning and online learning, for the most part, for the first 8 weeks, term within that semester. Then starting the second 8 weeks, we're looking at possibly opening that up and doing more. I don't wanna get, everybody too excited about it. You know, what's going on across the United States and across the state of Texas isn't good, even with the vaccine here. You know, I noticed there were some colleges that said starting in January, starting in their spring semester, no one can come back until they've been, received a COVID vaccination. Well, I don't know how they're gonna do that. A&M was a big one, I heard. You know, they got 45,000 students, and they're gonna get 90,000 inoculations, because it's a booster, so you have to have 1 and 3 weeks, 21 days later, the second one. You know, they have, I guess, Chancellor Sharp has a better road to that vaccination than I do. But, until we can get all that done, so we're gonna ease into it. Yes, we lose enrollments because students wanna come back and faculty wanna come back, we all wanna come back. So, we talk, probably every other day about this subject. We, mean myself and the 3 deputies, about what can we do, where are we, what do we think, where are we going, how can we protect this, how can we protect that, but, there are some things that are opening up as we speak.
Yeah, I was asking because, you know, I've got a daughter in the university, and they're very thorough in everything that they do. And she made it all the way until last week, and one of the girls on her floor tested positive, and they evac all the girls and told them to go home.
That's the thing, that's the thing that concerns us. You know, how do you open this up when nothing else has been done? And complacency, I've said this for the last 8 months, complacency is gonna be our downfall, and it's proven to be that. People are tired of it, they look around, they see people out together, and they gather in groups, they don't wear their coverings or face masks, they're up against each other, and this thing starts spreading. And just last week, Scott White was announced that they had curtailed all elective surgeries through the end of this week, and it would probably go again next week. So, because of COVID and the bed space and having the impact on just Scott White in itself. So, you know, it's a major issue, and I want to continue this err on the side of safety and health. And so, as bad as I want to get everybody back to the classroom, I really can't do that right now. And so, we're looking at that, and I promise you that every day, a week doesn't go by that we don't talk, and I consider, and I push the staff, hey, you think we can do it this week? And I get all the information, okay, keep going, we'll do it. But we are open, and we are back. Most offices out here are open, have people in them, and there are some offices counseling, or you get online counseling, virtual counseling and advising, so, the faculty are teaching, so yeah. I hope I answered your question.
You did.
Thank you, Dr. Carter, appreciate that update. Next item on our agenda is recommending topics for upcoming agenda items or announcements by board members. So,
I don't have an announcement, but I don't want to miss the opportunity to thank Bob and Doug for what they do. Because I've been with organizations that the items that we needed to rectify were pages in length. So I want to thank you for what both of you do.
I'd like to echo that while she's mentioning that, I might serve it, and you know, I'm Bob for what, 40 years, I guess, and I get emotional, he doesn't get emotional. You can cut his arm off, he wouldn't cry, so.
I believe you, Don, will stop with you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
Do you mind passing those out to the
Yes.
appropriate recipients?
You want me to do it? Yeah, I can do it now.
Yeah, I mean, we've got to get it to them today because this is the end of it.
Yeah, they'll be here when it ends, when the meeting ends.
I don't have anything, thank you.
I've got one item I'd like to see discussed when we come back in January, and that's the foundation. There's some turmoil in the foundation right now, and just been notified that the treasurer has resigned. I believe our director has also put in a request to be relieved of her duties first of the year. So we're gonna have to search that new director. And so just give us an update, if you will, sir, on what's going on in this corridor. You're on top of it, but it affects a lot of things that we're doing. And we just need to know that we've got a plan in place, because all of a sudden the spring is here and we've got all these scholarship people that want to come and ask for money, when the graduate seniors and so forth, so we need to be ready to handle that problem. And announcement of the time and location of the board workshop scheduled for January 19th, 2021, and the board meeting scheduled for Tuesday, January 26th, 2021. Meanwhile, I believe, Ms. Jordan, do we have a virtual ceremony for awards?
Friday.
Would you please give everybody the information for that? Maybe.
Give us a quick brief on that.
Yeah.
It's
It's gonna be a thing, how it's gonna happen, it's gonna be kinda interesting, and you might wanna be able to dial in and do that.
Yes, thank you, sir. We are having a virtual service award ceremony, and we're doing something very similar to what they did for graduation. It's all being done through my office, but it'll be a video, and the video will be released at 8 o'clock on Friday,
This coming Friday.
this coming Friday,
Yeah, so
the
tune
18th.
in, are you sending out something where we can dial into that and WebEx in, or how do we do that?
We're gonna send it out through Newslink, but then, so all
I
in.
don't think they don't, y'all,
We can share, I can work with Debbie, and we can send that
But
out.
how did we do the graduation? That's, I mean, it rolled out to everybody, was,
So we had a vote, to dial in, we had to
Right.
go on, I forgot the name of the program, but.
Well, it's a YouTube
was it,
video, so it's a.
oh,
Yes, ours is a YouTube video also.
okay.
It's just
It
a
should
lengthy,
be.
so.
If it's a video, it's not live stream, so you can watch it anytime.
Anytime.
after it's posted, yeah.
You can watch it over and over.
Yeah.
Fast forward if you want.
I think many of you had input into that video. We all had pieces and parts to say, and I can tell you that Ms. Jordan's staff, Scott Wyman, I think, was the my presentation good, took some things out, added some things, but I don't, so anyway, thank you, and thanks Scott for that.
Yes,
So
well,
I
I
think-
would like to thank, everybody that donated door prizes. We still, you know, if you've attended the service award ceremony, you know, employees always get excited about picking up that red ticket, and we, were able to continue to do that. We've got a number of door prizes that will be, awarded through that video.
If I win a virtual door prize, can I watch it over and over again?
Winner.
You're part of the comptroller.
Thank you, Ms. Jordan. We do have an executive session scheduled, so the next item on the agenda is, adjournment.
Adjournment.
All those in favor of adjournment? Vote with your feet.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah.
Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.